a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Here in Western Australia, Perth as it happens, it's overcast. It's still a lovely day though, it's quite peaceful and I hope it remains that way while I record this video. If you're new to the channel, you may not know who I am. I'm Anah Parreli and of course Lorena's Labyrinth is my baby. Now, as always, I let people know I do put timing chapters in the description so you can jump from one spot to the next if you're not interested in the content. The next comment that I was going to say, returning visitors will be aware of this. I do have a little dog and I decided to take a moment because I thought he's been relatively peaceful, but I have a feeling now he's going to be playing with his squeaky toys. But anyway, look, onwards and upwards. I hope that the week has been very kind to you. I have been extremely busy, and that means that I've actually got a lot to talk to you about today that you might be interested in. You can check out the timing chapter descriptions as well. But I think a lot of this stuff is going to be interested in those people that are seeking to develop themselves. So without ado, let me jump in. So in the first instance, I've actually been continuing to do the web development, and I can see or potentially hear you turning around saying, and why would I be interested in this? This is because historically, many people who haven't known me for a lot of years, which of course I started online, probably about 2013 was when I first built my website on a different provider. And I had a lot of information up there for people to be able to access as part of their personal, spiritual and psychic development. And this is because I used to teach a lot of people, especially back in 2013. Anyway, what happened was at some point in time, I decided to switch providers because really I wasn't generating income off the website and I wasn't actually interested in generating income off it. But because of currency conversions and that kind of thing, I'm not going to say which website it was. I'll just say that it was costing me about basically the equivalent of $60 Australian every month to keep this website up and running. And after about 4 years of it, I decided, no, I'm going to shift it over to the new provider, which I did. Now, that was a couple of years ago, and it's a lot cheaper. It's certainly a lot more affordable. It's a lot more practical for me. But what happened out of that is that actually I slapped it together. I didn't put enough detail on it, and I didn't bother to put up a lot of the content. So more recently, I decided to go back and take a look at it, and that's when I realised just how bad it is. And so I'm now in the process of fixing it. So it's been a challenge. Let me just say, when we talk about the website development, there's all these technicalities of how you actually build it out. So that's been giving me a bit of brain strain, but I'm all good about this. I'm getting a handle on it, just so you know. It's getting a lot more refined. It's getting easier for me. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, bottom line is I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and I'm having to learn these new strategies and I guess technological techniques. So it is pushing me. It definitely is stretching me beyond my capacities, but that's okay. I'm stepping up to the plate. Now, this is where I'm hoping it's going to get interesting for you. So what I've currently been doing is adding not just adding my old content, I'm actually reviewing everything. I'm looking at everything again, and I'm redesigning graphics and everything else, because the old website, let's be real, the content that I had on it, I put that up, say, in between 2013, 2016. Spiritual content really doesn't go out of date. However, my capacity to articulate, I would like to think, has improved over the last however many years. So I'm definitely updating the content right now. So let's jump in and take a look at some of the progress. You're getting a sneak preview here, okay? So what I'm working on today is actually chakras and chakra balancing, and putting up this content, looking at it again, and basically giving people information on how they can do their own chakra function assessment, because this is always very important. And the whole thing is that when I actually put this content up, I do actually reflect on it myself to make sure that I'm comfortable with the content that I'm putting up. Of course, it's faith-based. Really, you know what I mean? And one of the things I will say is I do go and double check, because I'm a firm believer that when we think we know everything, we actually don't know very much at all. And we don't know to ask questions if it hasn't actually entered into our world, so to speak. So what I like to do is actually take a bit of a look around, see what other people are saying, some of it resonates with me, some of it doesn't. So, I guess at the end of the day, what I will put up on my website is the stuff that resonates for me, with me, and that I feel and believe to be true. And actually, I should have put up the disclaimer here. So as people, well, actually, not a disclaimer so much, more of an announcement that basically I started exploring chakras back in about year 2000. And so this has been one of my primary focuses over the years. And chakras are so important, by the way. A lot of the people turn up going, can you teach me how to do psychic work? I want to be able to do clairvoyance, or I want to be able to speak to spirit and all the rest of it. The bottom line is what I always said to everybody I ever taught is, don't even try to open up your psychic gifts if you haven't done your chakra work. You need to get an understanding of your chakras first, and they need to be stable. You would not put the roof on the house if you don't have solid foundations, and this is what chakra work is. If you really want to open up to your gifts, then you need to build the foundations. We all do, because otherwise it just becomes rickety. We can become psychologically unstable if we're not paying attention to the whole, structure, if you like, because the chakra system is a structure within the body. So we need to put our attention on all of it, okay? So this is what I'm working on today. And what I'm finding is I'm jumping from a few pages to the others. If you went on the site, you'll see it's an absolute mess at the moment if you were able to click to any of the links. And this is why I've got that big sign up the top. But where I'm going is I'm jumping from this page as far as doing updates at the moment, and I'm also working on the angel page, but that's not up there yet, or I don't think that you'll be able to see it. And if you can, it's just such a mess, because I started on that because I love angels, but the bottom line is, as I've started it, I've realized I actually need to address the foundations before I go into the pages on angels. So anyway, from the chakra page, I'm also interacting with the pages on colour. Now, just to be clear, except for that little image there where you've got all the fluffy paint colours and that these images in the banners, I'm actually creating a lot of these myself. So that's one that I put together. I absolutely love colour. I've been into it for many, many years. So what will ultimately go on this page, if you're interested in it, is more of an introduction on how to work with colour, some tips to use at specific times. Like if you're suffering, say, with guilt, or you're finding it difficult to move on from the past, there's certain colours that you can actually use that do, in fact, I must say, and this will be on the website, there is actually psychological evidence, if you like. Now, they've done research into it in as far as they will turn around, I say they, the so-called experts with clinical qualifications is probably a good way of describing it, where they now will support the belief that colour impacts on mood, okay? And the colours that we wear or we're surrounded with definitely impacts our mood. So that's great. But the reality is, from a metaphysical perspective, we believe that it goes beyond affecting your mood, that it actually assists a person to have good physical, emotional, and spiritual health, if you like. Now, there was something that came to mind to me as I was saying that. I'm not going on a transcript today. I'm actually being quite brave, really. Colours. What was I going to say about colours? Oh, yes, the other bit. So this is why I've started going in between, because these topics are actually all interactive. The chakras have got colours. Colour works interactively with them, and the aura. So there will also be information on the influences of colour, or how we can draw upon colour. There'll be strategies put up there as part of balancing your aura. So this page is a happening thing as well. I think I'm still actually, as I'm creating this content, I am revisiting how to deliver it in the best possible way so that people can access really helpful information. So maybe if you've got questions about it, I'm just thinking it might help me out to put the content up there if you feel like asking a question, and then I can include that on the website content as well, and I can certainly talk to it in the yarning. But one of the things that I am actually giving when it comes to the aura stuff is giving tips on how to do an aura scan. And of course, a lot of the time that's going to rely on people having clairvoyant abilities, but you don't have to be a clairvoyant or a psychic to be able to do aura scanning or to scan your own aura. It's actually a technique that I learned simply through meditation way before I actually developed my psychic gifts, if that makes sense. But where I'm going with this is too that as I put this content up, I actually am getting reminders of things that I consider to be fairly important to teach to people, especially if they're just opening up to their gifts. And that's part of supporting them to feel safe, comfortable, and giving healthy and helpful messages. And this is why I'm talking about the next slides. So it seems, I believe, far more important to address this factor of the black cloud these days because so much is going on around people to be frightened of anyway. But when people are coming into their gifts, what I've heard repeatedly over the years is where people will do the like, that whole, I don't like that person, or I don't know, there's something really uncomfortable about them. I've seen a black cloud in their aura, like, ooh, freaky stuff, right? Now, at one of the nights that I went to, one of the tarot nights, shall we say, there's a medium that turns up regularly, and I had this conversation with her. Now, funnily enough, I mean, she's an absolute lovely lady, but the very fact that I mentioned it, she was like, oh my goodness me, I hadn't noticed that, but you're actually right. So this is why I want to share this with you, because it is important as part of interpreting a person's aura and their energy. If you do get to see the black cloud, it is not something to be frightened of. If you are working, number one, I shouldn't say shouldn't. Number one, I believe it is inappropriate to actually scan somebody's aura without their consent. Okay, that would be the first thing. You're intrusive and violating their personal space if you're taking a look, or you've got your own personal boundary issues. But the other thing is okay, so somebody approaches you, they ask you to give a reading or a healing session to them, and you agree to it, and in the process of doing it, you become aware of the black cloud. Now, I'm saying this as in the black cloud, as though it's there. It is symbolic, okay? And if you are working with your guides at the highest vibration, then you will understand that your guides are never going to show you something to be frightened of. That's the first thing, okay? The other thing is the typical response to a novice psychic or clairvoyant is to knee-jerk away from it. They see it, they get frightened, they do a run-up, they shut their energy down and they stop looking because they think it might be, some kind of malevolent or malicious energy associated with the person, whereas it's actually not the case. What it does is it's showing, I suppose for some of us, it's about so we have some empathy to them. But I probably, before I speak about what it might reveal to us and how we might respond to it, what I will do is explain what this black cloud is and why, if we can tap into our gifts and harness the power of them, we can take a look and see where that black cloud is situated. When we're looking at them like a 2D image here, we're seeing it sitting directly above them. So, yeah, it doesn't look great. But if we were to walk around, if we were to do a visual walk around, we might see that that black cloud is actually 3 foot behind them. Okay, and that means it's past. Whatever that black cloud relates to is gone. The further back in the past or the further behind them, the further back in their history. Now, it could indicate that they have been exposed to violence. It generally is associated with some pretty dark stuff, I might add, and it could be violence and abuse as a child. It could be that they were even living in a refugee camp, because I've actually seen that. If they've had to survive under some very difficult circumstances and being exposed to some real horrors, then that is going to be there. Now, I believe this symbolises so we can have compassion for them, because there is going to be a level of, behavioural issues. When it shows up, it's an opportunity for healing. Okay, you heal the dark by sending light into it. Blue light, I'll talk about that in a moment. But either way, we can have compassion towards them. That's a healing opportunity. Where it might be a concern, okay, just so you know, actually, I'll just throw something else in here too, is whether it sits to the right or the left, that can give indications of what and how this black cloud entered into the person's life. Sometimes it can actually show when people are escaping or fleeing domestic violence or childhood abuse. And if the closer that it is to a person, that might mean they're currently going through it. And so they might need some help or some support, and that can be healing energy. You don't have to stick yourself in the middle of this physically, but you can direct healing to help them free themselves and liberate themselves from that situation. And the other thing too is a novice might actually get frightened if they see the black cloud in front. Okay, now from my perspective, that becomes an opportunity for a divine intervention. Okay, sometimes if we've been giving messages for a long time, we actually know and understand that some things don't look great. From a human perspective, we can look at it and think, well, I'm not liking the look of that. You know what I mean? Can I change my future? Well, if you get shown it and you don't like what you're looking at, then that is an opportunity for a divine intervention. And so in the instance of the black cloud, if it showed up, it shows a risk. Basically, it's showing a risk of harm coming up. This is my interpretation. Now, you may have different views of it, okay? And this is why I say it becomes an opportunity to do some energy work to put protection. Now, I didn't have a black cloud. I had my own experience many years ago. And just to summarize it, I was told that I was going to have a very serious car accident where I would be at fault and people would actually be killed. Now, as if anybody wants to hear that. And it came from a trusted source, by the way. So anyway, where I'm going with this is we sat there for hours, myself and my friend who was also a psychic, trying to get to the bottom of this, to establish, was there anything that I could physically do to avoid this? And the answer was no, no, no. And then we were like, but the guides, they never give bad news. You know what I mean? They don't tell fear-based messages. We've got high vibrational guides. And in the end, my light bulb came on and I said, is there energy work I can do? And I got, yes, I could. I could do the activity that's coming up next, but I could wrap my car in it. Now, where I'm going with this is it was actually within 24 hours that this near-miss accident that had been predicted ended up being, I almost T-boned a car, shall we say. A T-bone means hitting them in the side, and my foot was going through the floor on the brakes. I was at fault. It was my mistake. It was my error of judgment. We're going back a lot of years here, and I'm not going to say what happened. It's not relevant, really. What is important for this is that I believe that I didn't get out of the car because my legs couldn't stop shaking, but it certainly appeared to me that I had missed the car by millimetres. The impact didn't occur, but the incident occurred, if that makes sense. So I'm a big believer in this next strategy. So just a reminder here, I'm giving this strategy to you. If you were to see the black cloud in front of a person, you could encourage them to do this activity. But we don't need to be in that situation and seeing a black cloud to be able to do protection techniques, okay? So what it is you practice your breathing. Obviously you invoke, you wrap yourself in the blue light, this beautiful blue light, and you seal and shield the aura. Now, if you're like me and you're in a car, then you put the car in the blue light, okay? And then you put this firm barrier of protection around it to keep it safe. Now, I will actually use this strategy quite regularly during, I don't think I've ever stopped. When I go driving in the traffic, I'll always shield my car, especially if I'm feeling a little bit fatigued. But anyway, just a reminder that, the other thing is too, if you've got somebody and you've seen the black cloud and you've discussed this technique with them, you've got to be very careful what you say to the people, because you don't want to leave them frightened. You might just say, look, my guidance is that actually that you're frightened that something bad is going to happen, because they will usually relate to that. And then you say, well, look, there's a technique, and can you promise me, please, that you will actually do this technique regularly? I'm going to send you some healing now. And in the meantime, what I ask you to do is that you actually follow your internal guidance, which is if you're somewhere and you start to feel unsafe, then you need to follow the hunch. And that's basically, if you get this inner urge that says, please don't walk down that dark alley, there could be danger, 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 then you listen to that and you back away from it. Even if you can't see any danger, pay attention to your intuition, okay? So that's how I would handle it. Now moving on to lighter subjects, but before we do that, just a reminder of what's happening with the local events. So I have actually published on Eventbrite the latest event, which is on June the 14th. Oh my gosh, the weeks are just going so quickly. The other thing that I've done is I've actually booked the space until the end of the year. Now, I don't know whether or not Karina and Kerry are going to be able to be there with me next week, or when we have the next one. I'm certainly not going to be taking along as much content with me as far as crystals go, because to be honest, my body just aches after the fact. So it will be limited. I might take along some token ones. I will certainly, as always, keep some selenite there. I will have some chakra packs so that people, if they want to use that, they can look at those. I always have some little healing packs there for people to take a look at. I'm going to, because I get asked questions about tarot reading, one of my tasks to do for the website is actually kind of do an introduction to tarot. So that will save me repeating when people come along. And hopefully, look, I'll let you know on here when I've done it. And that way you can go and take a look at that rather than ask me so many questions, because I'm one of these people, I tend to teach more by demonstration, by actively doing, than sitting up and speaking. So I'm more than happy to do readings for people if I get time, but I can't do teaching and readings at the same time unless we're sitting at the same table and I'm doing a reading on them, if that makes sense. Anyway, now the other thing that I've been reflecting on this week, because it's been a very deep week for me as I revisit all this content. So because I've been so busy working on the site and setting myself goals and all of that kind of stuff, and I was doing some quotes, obviously, for the channel as well, and researching some Chinese masters and that, and I just had, there's been a couple of their quotes. They've got such amazing wisdom, historical wisdom. But one of them that kept coming back in my head was Confucius, the saying, before enlightenment, chop, chop, or what is it? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Now, I thought to myself, I really actually wouldn't want to be saying this, because it might actually make people think that I think that I'm enlightened. Whereas bottom line is, I think if we were referring to ourselves as being enlightened, then perhaps we might be a little bit arrogant, would be a good description. That perhaps we're not as enlightened as we might like to think we are, because we somehow think that we're more knowledgeable than everybody else. But the bottom line is, we never stop growing, and we all grow in different ways, and we're all going to one end goal. But anyway, it got me thinking, and this becomes a little bit of a problem when I overthink, but whatever. It got me thinking, what exactly do we mean by enlightenment? And this is where we're going down a tangent. So I'm going to refer, I have put notes on this. I'm going to go back to my notes for this one, okay? Enlightenment, if we think about it, is that process of being able to let light into our aura. And I do recall some time ago in a different video on this channel explaining my understanding of how we raise our personal vibration. As we do it, our vibration gets lighter and lighter, more transparent, and it's not just about the weight or the heaviness of the aura, but rather the more light that can pass through this molecular structure that I think they call it electromagnetic structure that our aura is made of. Anyway, so what I explained it years ago to people is, if you think about it like this, the physical body is the densest part of the aura. It is part of the aura, okay? When we hold our hand up to the light, as in this lady here, it creates a shadow. If we hold a rock up, it's going to create a shadow. If we hold a lampshade up, we're going to be able to see light. Oh, well, it depends on the lampshade, doesn't it? Okay, let's say a piece of material, a sponge or whatever, we get a filtered light come through that. So it's still got physical body, but it's not completely blocking the light. And of course, when we hold up a piece of clear glass, we get unfiltered light come through. There's no shadows that are caused from the glass. The sun rays just go straight through it. So that's light, okay? But how does this light apply to the human body? So this is how my mind works, guys, okay? Especially in line with concepts of enlightenment. Now, before I go down this pathway, I just want to remind you that it helps to have a sense of humour, okay? So, where I went with this, I thought to myself, it doesn't matter how much energy work we do, okay, while we have a human body, it's never going to be transparent. It will always cast a shadow. But then I thought of something else. Okay, when we're in the fullness of the day, right, or the middle of the day, I think it's about 12 o'clock here in Australia, that is the brightest and lightest part of the day. And when we get to that time of the day, the shadow becomes very small, it shrinks down, and I don't have a good image of it, but basically it might just be a small circle around your feet if you're lucky, you know what I mean? But there's not much of a shadow because the sun's directly overhead. Anyway, what else did I say? Just basically going back to the shadow business, where we stand in relation to the sun is going to determine how big our shadow is, how long it is, how much space it takes up. And then the other thing I thought of too, and I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit warren, but basically if somebody stands in front of us, they can actually block our light. And you will know this when certainly if you live in bright sunny countries where a person can't read their phone because the sunlight's too bright. So one of us might stand in front of the other to block the light so they can actually read what's on their phone. So where I'm going with this is that, yeah, sometimes we can become stuck in the darkness because we're standing behind somebody and not seeing the sunlight, I guess, but that becomes that rabbit warren. Anyway, I reached a conclusion with my contemplations and my thinkings, which is basically that it doesn't matter how much work we do in this lifetime, we can achieve obviously a certain level of high vibration light, you know, if you want to call it enlightenment, but anybody that's got a full physical body is never going to be fully enlightened. The bottom line is we will always be able to cast a shadow when we are in body. That's the bottom line. And so the idea would be that, you know, because I thought about this and I love this has come to me, I think it came through from my guides, is that while you're walking your path, just try and keep the shadow small. You know, we have a shadow, that's our ego. It's got, you know, so many layers of saying anyway to it. But the best we can really do as we seek enlightenment is actually to keep the shadow small. And that is to walk the path in the fullness of the sun. That means not hiding from the sun as well. That means just walking the path light and bright, I hope. I don't know. I'm interested in your thoughts anyway. That was the conclusion I reached. So as far as the crystal magic update goes, look, I really have not ordered any new crystals at the moment. I'm trying to actually basically just stop spending money really at the moment. You know, it happens in life. But I am still continuing to work on the content, the crystal content, and I will ultimately have crystal information, crystal guides over on my website as well for ease of access for you. So in the meantime, you will have seen the azuritesunstone video go up because that was published this week. Obviously, I don't think it was a long. I think it was a longer one actually. I've lost track of time because of all this other work that I'm doing. But anyway, I haven't been able to catch up with Gemstone Geeks to find out what's going on with them either. So I did put the blueapatite video up as well, and when I was recording it, I mentioned to people that I've got some here, and my intention to actually give it a try because I didn't have any personal experience that I could relate to the video because I hadn't actually worked with it before. So I also said that I would put feedback on the yarning video this Sunday. So here's my feedback, okay? Initially, I was wearing it for a couple of days, and I was thinking, this is, you know, as I say, this is a bit bollocky, really. I haven't noticed or observed anything. Now, I must point out that sometimes the observations, it can be very subtle and it can happen over a couple of days. And so where I'm going with this is I think I'd been wearing it for about 2 days and thought to myself, you know what, I'm just going to take it off because it's not really doing anything so much for it being a powerful healer or whatever. Now, I will say when I had that thought, I reckon it was probably about 2 or 3 hours later that I was busy working at the computer, of course, and then all of a sudden I felt all this activity in my throat area, and it actually felt almost like a lump, and I knew immediately that there was energy work happening on my throat chakra. Now, I feel that I'm observing today when I record this video as I talk to you, I'm actually thinking to myself, one of its attributes for that is about communication, verbal expression. And I actually feel quite confident and comfortable today with the way that I'm expressing and recording this video, which is interesting because if you notice, if you look at my past videos, there's a lot of humming, harring, stalling, where today I seem to be able to just jump straight in. The other observation that I've known is I do seem to be getting more order and organisation with my time management, and that's apparently one of the key factors or key attributes of blue apatite. But I do suggest that, for your own benefit or interest, that you go and check it. I should point out too, I've now taken off the blue apatite. I took it off yesterday and I'm starting to rest it. And now I'm back to wearing my actually, somebody corrected me on my pronunciation, my numite. Okay, I'm back to wearing my numite because I actually really love it, especially at the moment when I'm trying to do a lot of work and manifesting. So when it comes to next week's uploads, I've got to be honest, I actually have only just done the templates, and so I haven't even done the transcripts yet, but I'll get onto that over the next day or so because, of course, one gets loaded on Tuesday. The intention is that I will load Amber on Tuesday. What I'm a little concerned about now is, as I'm recording this, is I just realised that I was about to duplicate another one of the crystals because I love red garnet. And when I talk about crystal magic updates, I actually managed to get some red garnet spheres about 2 weeks ago. So I was thinking about doing it on red garnet, but I've now realised I'm going to have to change it, and I haven't made the template. But I'm thinking, because one of the properties for amber is about tapping into the wisdom, ancestral wisdom, if you like, and Gaia energy and things like that. I know that without even actually having started to do the content on it. But there is another crystal that we can actually use that carries similar type properties, and that would be petrified wood. Or maybe I'll do ammonite or amalite or something like that. But either way, I'll keep it as a surprise for you. It'll be loaded on Thursday, okay? In fact, actually, I like the idea of maybe doing ammonite. Might be nice, but I'll get back to you on that one. So just a reminder about the other playlists, of course. If there's a subject that you see or you want to know more about, let me know. I have mentioned the fact that I have done teaching. I probably, I'm going to have to update my bio on the website as well. There's something I've missed out on there. I have put a biography on there because a lot of people do want to know more about who and what I am and, how I've evolved my gifts and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'll update that again. There's something I missed out, which is important. Actually, there's a couple of things really. But anyway, I will update that. And if there's questions about content, feel free to ask me. If you feel that I haven't covered all of it or that there's more, and I'm sure there's going to be more than whatever I give people. I'm sure they've got more to add, and that would be wonderful. So feel free to make a comment or ask questions, because if I don't answer it, somebody else is going to answer it anyway. We've seen that on the channel already. For now, though, if you've made it this far, just as always, look, thank you very much for being part of my journey. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week. Take care. I'm going to catch you on the next one, okay? Love you. Leave you. See you later. Bye-bye.